My name is Ammon for American States News, and we got Tom Barnett here for episode 1, or first interview. Say hi, Tom.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ammon.
Yep. So, American States News kind of comes from a perspective of, don't treat people like they're stupid, and we kind of know what's going on. I've seen Tom doing interviews around on two of my really favorite things to learn about is health and law, and I figure Tom is really just the perfect dude to interview for interview number 1. So, Tom, if you want to tell a little bit about yourself, and it'll be good.
Yeah, sure, man. So I I got interested in the law from probably 10 years ago when I started finding out that there were holes in the system. So I always knew the system was wrong. It was corrupt and it didn't make any sense. But then when I started to find out that there was a thing called a straw man and there was, the governments were all corporatized, that kind of really piqued my interest. So once I got, followed that kind of path, then it led me down to find out a lot more about how the world is structured and how our rights were never taken away. They're always there, but we just got tricked into taking a different path. We got tricked into the, acting for the straw man and to engage in commerce in a way that puts us in the role of a debtor. So that, that's where I got the interest in that. I still actually don't like it because it's still boring to me. I don't want to learn somebody's game that I didn't want to play in the first place just so that I can win. Like, that's not what I want to do. I want to play my own games. But that's kind of the world we live in. It's important to at least learn how to defend yourself in those ways. And health wise, I'm a holistic health practitioner. I've done that for actually close to 15 years now, and learned from Paul Chek, learned from a lot of good people around the world. And I've always had a real natural fascination for the body, the mind, and health since I was a kid. So everything's just followed that path.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Why don't I tell a little bit about my story real quick, if that's all right. Probably a year ago, really about the law stuff, and kind of, me and my girlfriend, we weren't living together at the time, and I was in right outside Philadelphia, and she was in Philadelphia. In about December, we both kind of started feeling like things were just not right. Started preparing, started mentally just like talking about leaving the city, and January things kind of got going, and I think it was like right in the middle of right at the beginning of February, we were both like, all right, it was a Saturday night, we're like, let's look at places to move out in the country. We looked Saturday night. Sunday we went and we found a place middle of nowhere in the mountains, and then 2 weeks later all heck broke loose, and the lockdowns, and that the rest is all history. So we kind of did like the perfect timing to get out, stay healthy, keep the mind clear, and have our own homestead. We've got a garden and everything, so completely different from a year ago, and it's crazy. And so I started really diving into the law stuff because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to have kind of like peace of mind and know, like, hey, with all this stuff going on, I want to know what is law, what is them blowing smoke and all this. So I learned about the U.S. citizen thing, and I know it's a little bit different, or maybe not that different. U.S. citizen versus American citizen, and then Australia's equivalent. And I got my status. I took care of my status and all the presumptions, and so we're good, and we are actually in the Pennsylvania State Assembly, and that's what I really wanted to. The only thing I wanted to share with you, Tom, is what's going on with the assemblies. Now, have you heard of this?
No, but I know you guys have a dual system. It's different to Australia, so it seems actually a lot like you guys have a better place to come from than we do. So, but tell me about this. Tell me about this thing in Pennsylvania.
Okay, so I don't claim to be an expert on the assemblies, but I've looked into them. So basically, where this comes from is the Republic, and all the way back to the founding. In fact, before the founding, really, but the assemblies at the moment. So we have all 50 states have their own unincorporated assemblies, and so this is basically, there is a corporate government and are you familiar with the state of state? The corporation is the state of blank, Utah or whatever, Colorado. So those are all corporations incorporated under DC, not the actual government the way it's supposed to be anyway. So those have they've been vacant. And so the assemblies is just the very beginning of the people on the land jurisdiction remembering who they are and making sure they've got everything taken care of, and then assembling to begin repopulating the offices and basically everything. So, in an unincorporated, organic fashion. And so we've got all 50 assemblies are up and running for the first time ever, obviously, because back when assemblies were running, there wasn't 50 states anyways, and they had taken care of that. But so this year has just seen an explosion in progress, and some of the states have been going. The assemblies have been going for years. Decades, maybe. I don't know exactly, but I know some of them have entire counties and court systems set up. They've been running. They've, taken care of any issues, and it's all peaceful and good. So, the events at the beginning of this year really was what set off the warp speed or hyperdrive of everybody getting in their assemblies and learning what they needed to do in order to self-govern. And so that's happening, and it's a huge comfort, I guess, in knowing that all 50 states, there are people who have realized what's going on and who have taken it upon themselves to self-govern. And I guess really, before you ask any questions, there's one thing that I wanted to point out as far as assemblies. There are, I don't know the exact term there are jural assemblies, there are jural societies, and there's a bunch of different terms, but the jural assembly, or the just assembly, not society. So the assembly is the unincorporated land jurisdiction version of that. Mm-hmm. So I know there had been not land jurisdiction assemblies before. So the only thing is and this is another thing I want to talk about, the only thing is to make sure that you're not claiming U.S. citizen. You're not U.S. citizen to be in the assembly, because that comes to a lot of other things like Trading with the Enemies Act and all that kind of stuff, the Lieber Code, and I actually have notes about that and we can talk about it, but I just wanted to bring that up. So we actually have something that can help you guys out as well. So one of the biggest things, and it's only just the past couple of weeks, is we have a land recording system that we've put together ourselves, because we have elected recording secretaries and notaries, etc. And so we're doing an electronic recording system, which is the land recording system. It's on the land jurisdiction, and there's no it's international. So once it's up and going, you can use it, and anybody can, with following the proper protocols, but it is for people, living men and women in the land jurisdiction. So what we'll do is record documents, just any kind of like status documents, or your vehicle title, whatever things you need to be recorded, and those can be accessed as if they're public record even
Okay.
by a QR code on the back of our own credential cards. So we'll have them on the credential cards. You can scan the QR code, and it pulls up the corresponding documents to show I am a Pennsylvania state citizen, and et cetera, et cetera. So that is like, it's not a state issued ID. It's an actual, just a connection to the documents.
Yeah, well, if that's it can apply to Australia as well. I think that's amazing. I think it's a very different jurisdiction on our land. I think it sounds like it has merit. It definitely sounds like it'll work in the States. It definitely does. In Australia, it's quite a different system. So I can see it working, but I think it'd need to fall into some kind of native title as well, because we're a conquered nation. There was never a treaty agreement or an alliance or anything done with the natives who were here first. So therefore, we're only governed by commerce. So we can, yeah. I mean, it sounds good. It sounds like it's worth implementing or looking at ways to implement that here. Absolutely. Well, I mean, we have the same thing. We have like the state of Queensland, the state of New South Wales, the state of Victoria. They're all the corporate states. They're all registered in Washington as well. They're different to the land of Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, whatever. So the state and the land are two different things. But like I say, we don't have that dual system you have, and we have a different judicial system. So I'd definitely be interested in hearing more about it anyway, to see how much or what it would take to implement that here. I think it would be a different process, but I think it could be done.
Yeah, and I mean, that's part of one of my goals in doing this interview with you, is to kind of just have a conversation and put something out there for others to see, and then maybe some of the architects and or they're not lawyers anymore, they're at least not bar lawyers, who have put together this system and figured all of that stuff out, and then to see if it would be applicable to you. Little technical difficulties here, but I asked, how are things in Oz?
Well, it's good here. People keep telling me stuff about Melbourne, but I'm pretty sure a lot of that is just the news trying to create the fear. They're trying to put things out that aren't real. A lot of it's fake. They're trying to set the stage for the rest of the world by the looks of things. So around here, there's nothing different than any other day in the last 20 years. Like, everybody's still out in the street, at the beach, everyone's still socializing, everyone's still doing their normal thing. So the only thing that might make you think any different is occasionally you'll see somebody wearing a mask, but it's one in like thousands of people you might see. So everything around here is good, everything's normal, and except for what's happening in Melbourne, where they're trying to use that. What I think is they're going to use that to say that they stopped some disease that doesn't exist, and then they're going to use that as a precedent to go into when you have your winter, when Europe has their winter, they're going to say, this is what we need to do for our winter to prevent, COVID spread and whatever. Even though that's all fake and doesn't make any sense, that's what they're going to do, is use that. And the media are being used to push that fear narrative. But the reality is that most of us know the agenda is to put in the social credit system and a lot of other things as well, but that's one of the agendas. So at the moment, Australia is pretty much the spotlight for the rest of the world to see what's going to happen with that. And at the moment, not enough people are standing up and saying no to that.
It definitely worries me. I heard from my dad that a lot of my family kind of just buy all of that and buy, the picture that your media paints of us over here as, just a bunch of racists and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
I'm still very hopeful, and I know you guys have like a protest in Melbourne coming up on the 5th or something, I think.
Yeah, that's around the whole country.
Yeah, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think what they've done down there is just kind of screwed themselves for doing what you said and bringing those same measures over here in the winter. I mean, unless things like literally get crazy, but a lot of people here, like you said, like they've already realized, like they don't even, the news is all fear porn, and they don't even get the viewers that they thought they should get. And so many people are just like over this, and we're starting to talk, normal people are talking about how they can, they're not into all these virtual meetings and stuff, and how we can, start just going back to normal, because no one wants their kids to grow up like this. So
No.
yeah, it's crazy, and that's why, unfortunately, it looks like other measures are being taken as far as food and fires and weather and all that kind of stuff, but still very hopeful. I mean, people are woken up from this, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good thing because we always need a stimulus to wake up. Most people don't do it on their own, and so this is a really good stimulus. And like you said, the problem is that the news is losing viewers, but what's happening is that people are sharing all the bad stuff on social media. So they know how this works. So they know that if they put things out scared, they'll share those news articles in their social media, which means they have the reach that they want. People just need to not do that. Most of that news is fake, and it is designed only, what it is, it's an offer. So they're essentially saying, we want to do all this to you. And then people start sharing it on social media and saying, oh no, they're going to do this, but they're not going to do that. They're just offering it. If everybody ignored it, non-consented to it, and just said no one created something different, it wouldn't exist. But people bring it into existence by sharing it, talking about it, being fearful of it, and then speaking as if it's a reality. They create that reality. So until that happens, there are literally just offers. It's like, I want to come to your house, Ammon, and I want to take your salt lamp and your microphone. And if you start posting that on social media, oh no, Tom's going to come over and take my salt lamp and my microphone, it's probably going to happen. But if you just went, dude, no, these are mine, stay out, see you later, then I'm not going to come. You know what I mean? It's like, we have that power. It's literally what they do is they make offers, and they know that fear is a driving mechanism, and that's what they rely on. If people just didn't do that, then we wouldn't be seeing there would be no such thing as this coronavirus. There'd be no lockdowns. There'd be none of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I know important things, and what we're talking about is definitions, and it's basically, people don't really realize what the definition of like the public health or what was the other term, collective, anything like that. It's like a collective intention that they implant into people, and they let them, you put your intention out there, it affects things, it changes things. So they put that intention out, and it literally, people grab onto it and accept it. It's wild how it works, but at least people are waking up to it. So that's all.
Yeah. And more. It's good. I still don't think we've got the critical mass we need, but I think we're getting close. So I think it's, the more people do what you do and make podcasts, the more people talking about it. I think that's the way forward, because it just needs people talking and people thinking and starting to question. And that's a good move in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know before this, just as an example, before this, like before the COVID crap, I had already realized that I'm like, all right, so if I know that there's garbage chemicals in the food and it's basically not even food, then why am I ever accepting like eating that? Like it should be like, if I know what's in it, I should not ever eat that. And then, I made that change literally like the beginning of the year. Like it was like New Year's, although it like had no relation to those resolution things. It was just, that was when we were like, oh, why are we doing this at all? And then, with the COVID thing, it was the same thing with like, normal jobs and everything. Everybody's like, wait a second, I got to rethink this. Like, is this really the way I want to live? Especially if it can just all be taken away like that with all this. So yeah, I mean, it's a flowering, or of all sorts of aspects of life. People are just realizing, you know what, I like painting. I'm going to try doing that. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm super hopeful on all that. So if we want to, unless you had something else to say about that, I did want to switch gears a little bit.
No, just I think you're on the right track. You know, it's that whole thing of if people can start to get more back to their own essence and their own nature, that's the way. That's the way forward. And all these things that people have relied on and wanted for the last however many decades wasn't doing them any favors anyway. So you can let that go. Like I don't know why you'd want that. I don't know why you'd want chemical food and be surrounded by radiation and be polluted and be mind controlled and all that. Like I don't know why you want that. So the fact that we're moving to something new and different, I think, is great. I would be running towards that with open arms, not trying to cling on to what was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I am doing, and even like my parents too. It's really great to see that everybody's just coming too, and it's awesome. Yeah, so that's all good stuff. And speaking of good stuff, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do an interview with you, because I thought the way you talk about this stuff is so well. So, not sure if you're familiar with the exact specifics, but I had some stuff written down here about money, right? So, money, U.S. dollars, definitions can vary, obviously, but I learned economics with some of the Mises, Mises.org, and doing some of those classes, Rothbard. I learned a lot about economics, and even then, compared to now, I knew nothing about money, and it's pretty wild how money works. It is literally a spell that binds people together, and so basically, there's two ways that money works. Definitely in America, it is a spell. So, are you familiar? Are you aware that when the money is created, it is the American people, the living men and women, who are the creditors on that transaction when the money's created. So, like for example, when you go to a bank, your signature is what creates the money, right? But most people don't know that, and they definitely don't know how to use that properly. So they're creating the money, but they really have no access to that money, and the banks take it immediately. And basically what's created with average people is a trust. So you have the state. Okay. So you have the money. The trust is created with the credit of the Americans. The state is the administrator, and they presume the benefits and make you the trustee in that relationship. So you get none of the benefits because you're presumed the creditor, the beneficiary is presumed lost at sea, basically. So the way it's supposed to be is you are the creditor and you're administrating, or you're the creditor, and then you allow them to use your credit, and they use that for your benefit, right? Putting this in words for the first time. Anyway, so that's the way it's supposed to be. And so there's a lot of things involved in that, like the Trading with the Enemies Act in 1933 deemed U.S. citizens in U.S. territory as the enemy. So where I'm going with this is, for being and acting as the beneficiary and as the creditor, that's the way we're all supposed to act. But it just sounds so crazy to people to think that, because with the Trading with the Enemies Act, you are basically a belligerent, and every time you use dollar bills, you create more debt. Every time you go to the bank, you create more debt. You're basically an enemy of the state. Along with a couple of other things that make you an enemy of the state. But I know there's one of the guys I've been watching, Yusuf L. He says it very, very well. Is that like none of these people, if you're doing the secured party creditor thing, if you're accepted for value, none of the people, and like what you said when you're in court, that none of them are your enemy. They just have a job, and for most of them, all you have to do is be pleasant and help them do their job, and you can get done with things. And that's really how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to be a belligerent, and it's not supposed to be trouble. And in the end, if you do the process properly, you are literally reducing the national debt. So I mean, like, that's as good as it can get. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I really wanted to have a conversation with you about that, in not being a belligerent with all of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, so just for background on that, when money is defined as gold and silver, essentially, point, and they were taken out of circulation just before the 30s. So when that was replaced in the system that we have now, it was replaced with currency and legal tender. So a dollar bill is a debt instrument. It's not money. It's a debt instrument. So when you use it, like you said, to pay for things or to pay a debt or to discharge a debt, you're using a debt instrument to discharge a debt, which doesn't work. It actually only increases the national debt, makes you an enemy of the state. You can be an ally of the state, though, if you use your own financial instruments. So that's a promissory note, acceptance of value, bills of exchange, or anything to that effect, where you access your own credits in Treasury using, in America, it would be your social security number, I would imagine, or a birth certificate, something. In Australia, it's your birth certificate, tax file number, and your equivalent of a social security, which is a Centrelink number. So you use those numbers and your signature is what is securitized. So that creates the money. And either way, well, more correctly, your autograph. So signature and autograph are kind of two different things. So your autograph is you. And then that creates the credits. But what it does is it draws down the national debt rather than increasing. So for people to learn how to do that, it's just a matter of learning about promissory notes, bills of exchange, acceptance of value, and these sorts of processes where you are creating your own bills, essentially your own financial instruments. And that's something that I can't really explain quickly of how to do. That's a
Yeah,
process you got to learn. But yeah,
yeah, you're right. I mean,
but it's definitely
I've been reading about that for a while now. You know, hundreds of hours. I'm still not quite there, but it is interesting, especially learning really how backwards we think about it. And like you said, you want to be reducing the national debt. If you do this stuff properly and with the right attitude, that's, I mean, when I listen to, so for example, I was listening to you on Crow. It was your first Crow interview, and just the way that you were kind of phrasing your responses to people. It was just like you were helping them do their job. Just, they didn't realize that they needed help by asking them the question and saying, agree with your adversary quickly, for if you don't, you could end up in front of the judge and then in prison. Are you familiar with that one?
yeah, I know it. I don't know the actual quote off by hand, but I know what you're talking about. It's all of the rules of commerce come from the Bible, so that's exactly right. So it's basically referring to honor and dishonor. It's honorable to agree, but to agree with conditions. It's dishonorable to disagree and argue. That's essentially what it's saying. So we don't ever want to disagree with people straight up because we create conflict and friction, and that's dishonorable in commerce. So that's basically what you're getting at, and it's true. You always want to remain honourable, and it's a little bit of a trick where we're taunted a little, I think, because we get a lot of frustration and anger where we have to play these games and it's not fair and everything else, and then gets us a bit angry. You kind of want to like lash out, like, you can't do that to me, and I'm not. I've got my rights, and you start saying that though, and then you're disagreeing with your adversary. So you don't want to do that. You want to both get agreement, and you get the agreement with the second witness principle, which is by asking them, Ammon, is it not true that I'm a man, or am I not a man? And then we're both agreeing. I'm not going, no, you're wrong, Ammon. I am a man. That's what the Bible verse is talking about. That way we've got disagreement and confliction. But what we want to do is we want to come to mutual agreement. So we say, well, look, I'm happy to listen to what you're saying, but am I not a man? Then I'm not a man. And then you'll give your answer, or you'll remain silent, which is assent. Then we both have agreement. Now we both agree, I'm a man, I have my rights, you can't take my rights away, and things like that. So that's what that verse is referring to. And actually, just while I think about it, when you're talking about money and how to remain honorable there, what you said, I can't remember what you said, but I think you were getting at is that we don't use these things for self-enrichment. We don't just go writing promissory notes to buy 10 cars because we feel like having 10 Ferraris. It's like, that's not what it's for. It's to discharge liabilities for debts. So that means that if you get a large fine, like let's say, I don't know, you accidentally crashed into somebody's car. Now there's an insurance debt, a liability for a debt, you can discharge that debt using your credits. Or if the government gives you a fine or wants you to pay taxes or something like that, you can discharge that liability. So that's different. That's just discharging to settle things, to zero things. It's not going out and trying to use that sort of stuff for self-enrichment and attaining and accruing material things.
Right, and that's why I always tell everyone who's new to this is like, this is truly like a spiritual journey, is and working your way through all of this stuff, and it's not gonna work out well for you if you have anything worldly like that in mind, as to like, you
Yeah.
want to get rich, or you want to have three houses and do all this stuff, but you don't want to contribute in any way to society. If
Yeah.
I always, when I think about things as an example, I always just try and go to the extreme. So imagine, if one out of every two people did that, we'd have nothing, and then we'd devolve right back into chaos anyway. So like, that's not good. What's good is to, live honorably and respectably, handle your own affairs, and within your means. I mean, no one needs four houses and whatever and all that, because what that would do anyways is pull you away from the spiritual journey that is this mortal life anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. I think, there's a circumstance, for example, if somebody discharged a mortgage, I don't like to see, I actually disagree with Mark a lot of, well, not a lot of times, but sometimes, my teacher who I've done the interviews with, and he says that, he asks the audience question when he does a workshop, and he says, if I'm time limited, so if somebody wants me to get them out of a few $100 traffic fine, or somebody's about to default on their mortgage, which one am I going to take? And I say, well, you should do the traffic fine, because nobody put a gun to your head to tell you to take out a mortgage. You wanted to purchase a house with money that you didn't have, to buy land that we can never really own. And then, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I think if somebody defaults on a mortgage, it's not a bad thing. They just go into something different. It's like, okay, well, we don't live there now. We live somewhere else, or we figure out a different way. Whereas I think that protecting people from piracy, nobody asked for a ticket. That's literally the definition of oppression. And so to me, I actually disagree with him. And I say you should help people with and stand up from being oppressed. If you defaulted on your mortgage, it's kind of, I don't know why you got that in the first place. I'm not putting people down for having mortgages, but I just think that you got to have a sense of responsibility. That was your 100% conscious decision to do. You don't know how 30 years of your life's going to go. How do you know you're never going to default on that mortgage in 30 years? That's how long an average mortgage takes. So, but I think people are thinking to gain things that they don't really need. So I don't see it. I can see their life being better and them gaining more spiritual freedom and education if they actually lost their house and figured out something different. So the reason I brought that up is that I think if somebody uses a promissory note or something to discharge a large debt for a home or something like that, I think they need to put people in there as well for free lodging. Or if it's an investment home, they need to let people rent there for free. They need to share that. I don't think they should use it for self-enrichment. That's just my personal opinion. Everyone can do what they want, but that's just how I see that kind of balance of energies.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. I mean, the energy's going to balance out whether they do that or not. It's not really, you're right. If you're able to, have a place like that, then you should be able to do that. But, it's not, it's not my place to judge or anything like that. But at the same time, what you were saying with the, it was your choice to get a mortgage. I was that was always the craziest thing to me, is that people, that's a normal thing to sign a death note, that's what the word mortgage means, to sign a death note for however many years, 35 years. And it's like, and they get these, fairly nice home. It's big. You got 3 extra rooms and whatever, garage, nice neighborhood, pool, and all that. But like, what if we just had a a shack, not really a shack, just like a normal size house out on some land that costs a quarter of what that costs, and then you could be free anyways, because then you're not worried about that. So I that's just one of the things I had thought of. But before
Yeah.
yeah, before we go, I had a whole lot more notes here, but that's my fault. I So something, and maybe
We can do it.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe we can go again, but I'm in the in the process of writing something up, and just kind of explaining, because I know you've touched on it. A lot of people have touched on it, but man, it is like the most obvious, clearest thing that like we are going into a period where there's literally going to be two opposing worlds, like completely inverted, and you've got the natural, you've got the artificial, you've got lawful, you've got legal. Seeing articles about ethicists talking about drugging the water to, keep people from, harming the collective by not wearing masks or whatever. If you haven't seen that, I'll have to show you. But and they're ethicists. So like an ethicist is, how to get around being actually moral, and like, legal is not lawful. It's getting around lawful and morality. So, definitely would like to talk about that sometime. I've got a whole list and things on that.
Yeah, that's a good topic. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do another one for sure. We'd go
Complete
next week.
opposite. So, and I've been reading your book and watching a couple of things. I really like the Common Sense Guide, and my girlfriend, she follows along right there with me. We're growing our own food. I know food is really the main medicine, but she makes her own tinctures out of different herbs and things. Mullein, rose hips, holy basil, and stuff like that. And basically, what that's doing is taking the spirit, the essence, out of the herb and concentrating that, and you're able to ingest it like that. And I was wondering if you had any experience and ever spoke on that topic. It's a little outside of food.
Yeah, well, I have. Yeah, it's very powerful. I just think it's one of those things that the closer you can get to the natural process of it, and you're making it yourself, the better. I think the more it becomes a mass marketed product, the less quality it's going to have, and the less of the essence you're actually going to get. So it's very powerful, and to be used as a medicine as well, not as like a crutch to replace food, but it's as a medicinal product. It's very, very powerful. Yeah. So I've had quite a bit of experience with different tinctures, and I think we all have an affinity for ones. Some of us will gravitate towards different plants, essentially, because they just have a different intelligence. And for the same reason that we gravitate towards different foods, we will gravitate towards different medicines as well. So we'll find something that is kind of like, ours, whether it's rosehip or like a basil or something. It's kind of like, the resonance is there. So it's important to get a bit of experience with different kinds and see how they react to you and how you feel with them. And then you'll find you'll develop a relationship with particular ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, making your own, and it'd be even better if we grew all those herbs ourselves. We got books and books we're learning about going out into the woods and finding it, but it's a lot of it's new for me. I mean, you see back there, that shelf is like her collection of dried herbs. So
right.
Yeah, I just
awesome. Well, they grow really well. A lot of that grows really easily. You'd be surprised. You don't have to put as much care and attention as you do with certain like crop foods and things. Like the herbs actually grow really well, and it's a good indication that you should be using them for that. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, just walk into the woods and find them. And I mean, a lot of them are actually weeds, like dandelion and nettle and all that stuff. I mean, nettle's probably one of the top ones she uses, and we put that in our food too. So it's just really, you're right. It's like, it's pulling the essence, the spirit, the ether of the the plant there. And I mean, that's, part of came from the land, it's part of the cycle of life. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, something we definitely enjoy and
Yeah.
have
Good.
been really making. We have two cupboards full, so of different kinds, kind of like making for the winter, and we'd like to share them with people too. So any of our friends or people in the assembly, we want to kind of be able to provide for people who might not be able to like stock up or might not be aware or realizing that we're on shaky ground as far as everything in the supply chain goes. So I mean, that's we've been
Yeah.
trying to like make sure that we're able to stand up on our own and also help out the community.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's perfect, because this is exactly what becoming a community is that you guys, you might specialize in that. We can all do a variety of tasks, but not everyone can do the tinctures, for example. So, but they have other skills and other maybe products that they can create. And then as a community, that's what happens. You have enough for you, but you have more to serve your community as well, and vice versa. In exchange for that, they have something that you can't grow or can't easily make, and then everybody works together. It's the most cohesive and harmonious way to actually live, and we're drawn out of that in our globalist kind of economic model. So what you're doing is brilliant. I think that's absolutely the way forward.
Yeah, and it's that energy, cycling through. I mean, even if you think about the energy lost when you order an herb or a supplement that comes, from 6,000 miles away and, with slave labor, it's like,
Yeah.
but bringing that energy, we, of course, we don't want to like take their jobs away from them, but bringing that energy home and then everybody kind of having their own communities. But then, it's, of course, we love to bring in like, I bring in stuff from Australia or coffee from wherever, that's great. But it's really keep, perfect that flow of energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, man. I know you got to go, so I appreciate it. It's a little bumpy ride here, but I definitely like to do another one, for sure. And
Sure.
I'll be a little bit more, it's first time as always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that I know.
Yeah, but make it the first step.
Sorry,
Good, man.
say that.
Well, just no, it's good, because you got to take that first step. You might, it's not the easiest, but after that, it does become easy. So I think it's great to, anytime we want to do something new, just take it. Just go for it. Let's go. It's the way to go.
Yeah,
Just take that move.
I ride BMX. I don't know if I told you that, but that's exactly how it is. I mean, you just got to do it. Do it. You might crash, you might not, but after you do that, then you know what it takes, and then you can just perfect it from there.